What if the very act the world praises as sacred, the one choice celebrated as the pinnacle of human life, is in fact the cruelest illusion of all? Parents call it love. Society calls it duty. Religions call it divine. But Arthur Schopenhauer ripped away the veil and revealed the abyss beneath. Having children does not create more life. It multiplies suffering. For centuries, cultures have wrapped this act in poetry, rituals, and smiling portraits, but when the masks fall, what remains is a decision that steals freedom, consumes individuality, and extends the curse of existence into another generation. Stay with me, because what you're about to uncover is not just philosophy. It's a mirror held up to your deepest fears, the ones you never dared to articulate. Reason number 1, the tyranny of the will to life. Schopenhauer wrote that everything alive is driven not by reason, not by choice, but by an endless, blind force he called the will. This will doesn't care about your happiness. It doesn't care about your dreams. It only wants one thing: to reproduce itself through you. That hunger you feel for romance, that obsession with holding a baby, that pressure to start a family, those aren't your authentic desires. They are the whisper of biology bending you into compliance. And the most sinister part, when you obey, you condemn another innocent consciousness to the same cycle of craving, disappointment, and death that you yourself struggle to endure. Think of it. Every newborn child is a captive thrown into existence without consent. Every small laugh you celebrate contains the seed of future tears. When you choose to have a child, you don't create joy. You manufacture another victim for the tragedy of life. Reason number 2, the death of the individual. Imagine a young man with dreams burning in his chest. He wants to write books, climb mountains, build a company, maybe even change the world. But then comes a child. What happens to his nights of creative obsession? Gone. His mornings of freedom? Gone. His resources, once fuel for ambition, are devoured by endless obligations. Parents often say they sacrifice willingly, but sacrifice always means one thing: the death of the self. Schopenhauer warned, a man can be himself only so long as he is alone. With children, solitude vanishes forever. Every decision must pass through their needs. Every ambition is diluted by their dependency. Slowly, without realizing it, you trade your identity for the role of caretaker. You no longer ask, who am I becoming? You ask, what does my child need today? And in that shift, the dangerous creative force you once carried dissolves into routine. Reason number 3, the illusion of legacy. Society tells you children are the way to live forever, that your bloodline ensures immortality. But the truth is colder. Your child is not you. They carry fragments of your DNA, but their path is theirs alone. They may abandon your values, despise your traditions, even resent you for bringing them into existence. They may disappear into anonymity, leaving nothing of you behind. Legacy is not secured by flesh and blood. It is secured by creation. Ideas, art, inventions, acts of rebellion that ripple through history. Schopenhauer saw children as a false promise, a trick that convinces you your existence mattered when in reality it only ensured another will suffer in your place. To imagine that your essence survives through your children is like mistaking the shadow for the sun. It comforts, but it deceives. Reason number 4, the economy of slavery. Here is the secret governments and corporations never want you to realize. Children make you controllable. A man without obligations can quit his job, vanish into the mountains, or burn down the system that exploits him. A man with children cannot. He must submit. He must provide. He must trade his most dangerous asset, freedom, for the illusion of security. That is why politicians glorify family values, why businesses offer family insurance plans, why religions sanctify parenthood. Because parents are predictable. They stay in line, they don't revolt, they carry the burden of keeping the machine alive. And what do they receive in return? Approval, applause, a pat on the back for their obedience. Meanwhile, their untamed energy, the same force that could have built empires or revolutions, is drained into the mundane. School fees, mortgages, groceries, endless compromises. Children don't just enslave parents emotionally, they enslave them economically. Reason number 5, the multiplication of suffering. This is the most brutal truth of all. To love a child is to create a vulnerability so vast it swallows you. Every sickness becomes your agony. Every failure their tears bring is your humiliation. Every danger in the world becomes your private nightmare. And no matter how hard you try, you cannot protect them from the fate written into existence: suffering, decay, death. Parents believe they gain joy, but what they gain is an infinite expansion of fear. Schopenhauer wrote that to love is to suffer, and nowhere does this suffering cut deeper than in parenthood, because your own pain you might endure, but the pain of your child, that becomes unbearable. In creating them, you created the very possibility of that anguish, and one day, inevitably, you will stand powerless before it. These are the 5 pillars of truth Schopenhauer dared to expose: the tyranny of the will, the death of individuality, the illusion of legacy, the slavery of the economy, and the multiplication of suffering. They are not abstract theories. They are the silent realities behind every family photo, every baby shower, every carefully worded declaration of joy. Look closer and you'll see it in the tired eyes of parents, in the resentment buried beneath polite smiles, in the confessions whispered late at night when the children are finally asleep. You don't hear it because society censors it, but it is there, waiting, undeniable. But the tragedy goes even deeper. Schopenhauer believed that bringing a child into the world is not simply a personal choice. It is the most selfish act disguised as sacrifice. Think carefully. When someone says they want children, what do they actually mean? They mean they want a version of themselves to live on. They want a mirror of their own face, their own laughter, their own habits, projected into the future. In other words, the child is not created for the child's sake. The child is created for the parent's vanity. A doll of flesh meant to carry forward dreams unfulfilled. Yet this doll bleeds, suffers, and dies. To reproduce is to use another being as the stage for your unprocessed desires. And Schopenhauer insisted, that is not love. That is manipulation by biology itself. Consider the cruel irony of parental pride. A man looks at his son graduating or his daughter performing and feels he has succeeded. But what is he truly proud of? That his genetic code managed to survive one more generation? That his bloodline continues like countless others who believed themselves important? Every family thinks it is special. Every parent thinks their child is unique. But time reveals the truth. Most children become ordinary, repeating the same patterns, trapped in the same structures, eventually swallowed by the same oblivion. Legacy dissolves and the proud parent dies knowing the cycle only guaranteed another death to come. Schopenhauer's insight grows darker still. He wrote that procreation is the affirmation of the will, the blind force that enslaves us. To have a child is to say yes to the endless chain of suffering. And yet most people defend this chain as if it were sacred. Why? Because they are afraid to face the emptiness of existence without this illusion of continuation. They fear that without children their lives will be meaningless. But meaning cannot be manufactured by creating more victims. Meaning must be forged from courage, from self-mastery, from the refusal to submit to blind instinct. The man or woman who resists parenthood is not weak. They are dangerous because they have dared to confront the void without hiding behind family photographs. Now picture the everyday reality of parenthood. The crying at midnight that shatters your concentration. The bills that devour your resources. The endless appointments, responsibilities, and demands that grind down your spirit. People say these are small sacrifices for the joy of watching a child grow. But joy fades quickly. Sacrifice remains. The parent becomes not a creator of life but a servant to it. Every plan is interrupted, every risk delayed, every dream postponed until later. But later never comes. Later becomes decades, and the man who once imagined changing the world finds himself chained to a mortgage, bound to a corporate job, enslaved by the very family he thought would complete him. Schopenhauer's words echo here. Marrying means to have one's rights and double one's duties. Apply that to parenthood, and you see the truth. To have children is to have your freedom and multiply your chains. And here lies another hidden cruelty, the myth of unconditional love. Parents love to claim that nothing compares to the love they feel for their children. But Schopenhauer would ask, what kind of love is it that guarantees future pain? To love a child is to place your heart in the hands of fate, to guarantee suffering through attachment. You do not free yourself by loving unconditionally. You imprison yourself in fear of loss, in dread of harm, in the constant anxiety of what may befall them. And sooner or later, Life will prove your fears justified. No parent escapes unscathed. Illness, betrayal, distance, death, each comes like a thief, and the deeper your love, the sharper the knife when it cuts. This is not a gift. This is a curse disguised as devotion. Think also of the psychological trap. Society convinces parents that their children will thank them, honor them, carry their memory. But gratitude is not guaranteed. Children grow, rebel, judge, and often reject the very sacrifices made for them. What parent has not whispered, "After everything I did for you"? That is the voice of disillusionment. For in truth, children owe nothing. They never asked to be created. They never signed the contract. Their lives were imposed, and they may rightfully resent the burden. Parents imagine they are saviors. Children often feel they were conscripted, and in this silent conflict, families rot from within, smiles cracking under unspoken bitterness. Schopenhauer called procreation the perpetuation of the tragedy of existence. And when you look closely, you see why. Every child born is another actor forced onto the stage of suffering. They did not audition. They did not choose the script. They are thrown into the play, and the curtain will fall whether they like it or not. Parents imagine they are giving life, but life is not a gift. It is a debt, a chain, an unavoidable march towards suffering. And the cruelest irony, the parent who thought they were giving joy must one day watch that child suffer, stumble, and die. What greater torment could exist than to witness the destruction of the very being you brought forth? This is why Schopenhauer believed the highest wisdom is not to create more life, but to resist the urge to impose it. To create is easy. To resist is divine. For in resisting, you do not condemn another soul to the wheel of existence. You break the chain, even if only for a moment. Parents may defend their choices with passion, but passion does not erase truth. Truth remains. Children do not save you. They consume you. They do not guarantee legacy. They expose your vanity. They do not free you. They enslave you more completely than any chain could. And so the question lingers like a blade over your conscience. Do you truly want children, or have you simply been programmed to want them? If the answer is programming, then to resist is not selfish. It is rebellion. It is the refusal to serve the blind will. And in that refusal, you may find the first taste of freedom. But rebellion against the will is not simply an abstract idea. It is a lived reality for those who dare to see clearly. Schopenhauer described the world as a place where desire is endless, satisfaction temporary, and suffering inevitable. To bring a child into that cycle is to create another prisoner. And yet, the prison is decorated with balloons, birthday parties, lullabies, and sentimental illusions. Parents insist they are giving meaning, but meaning built on deception collapses when examined closely. The child becomes a project, a status symbol, proof of maturity. But beneath the smiles lies exhaustion, resentment, and the silent question whispered in private moments, "What have I done?" Consider the quiet despair of a father who once dreamed of invention. He spends his days not in laboratories but in offices, chained to tasks he despises, because there are mouths to feed. He once imagined creating something eternal. Now he calculates school fees. He tells himself this is noble, but nobility doesn't erase regret. His child did not save him from mediocrity. His child guaranteed it. The brilliance that might have changed the world is buried under diapers and spreadsheets, and society applauds because a tamed man is useful. He no longer threatens the system. He maintains it. Now picture the mother who once longed for freedom. She felt the urge to travel, to study, to write, but a child arrived, and suddenly the walls closed in. Every journey postponed, every book unread, every hour consumed by care. Society praises her sacrifice, but in private she feels the weight of a life she no longer controls. They call it motherhood. Schopenhauer would call it bondage. For to be bound to another being's constant needs is not liberation, it is servitude. And though the mother may smile, deep inside burns the quiet grief of a self that has been erased. This is the unspoken truth. Children do not only inherit your love, they inherit your chains. The chain of your economic slavery, as you bend your life around earning more, buying more, providing more. The chain of your fears, as every danger in the world becomes magnified through their fragile existence. The chain of your compromises, as your authentic self dissolves into roles: provider, protector, caregiver. And the cruelest chain of all, they inherit existence itself, the curse of wanting, striving, suffering, and dying. You believe you are giving them life, but what you are truly giving them is your sentence. Schopenhauer's philosophy may sound brutal, but look around and ask yourself, is it not true? How many parents do you know who are more fulfilled after children? How many have more freedom, more creativity, more danger, more life? Most have less. They become careful, predictable, domesticated, and society loves this, because society does not want dangerous individuals. It wants obedient parents, and so it wraps parenthood in gold while hiding the rust beneath. There is another layer to this deception, the illusion of happiness. Parents tell themselves they are happy because to admit otherwise would be unbearable. Cognitive dissonance forces them to insist, I wouldn't change a thing. But their eyes reveal the truth. The exhaustion, the lost dreams, the silent envy when they see someone who remained free. Schopenhauer wrote that happiness is merely the temporary absence of pain. In parenthood, pain multiplies, but moments of joy are amplified to hide it. A child's laugh becomes the mask covering years of sacrifice. A birthday party becomes the justification for decades of lost potential. But when night falls and silence returns, regret whispers louder than the laughter. And here lies the most haunting thought. One day that child will suffer the same fate. They will struggle with their own disappointments, betrayals, illnesses, and mortality. They will one day bury you, and eventually be buried themselves. And through them the cycle continues generation after generation, without end. You thought you created joy. You created another link in the chain of suffering. This is the cosmic cruelty Schopenhauer saw. The will to life tricking each generation into reproducing the very torment they sought to escape. Some defend children by pointing to the joy of family, the warmth of connection, the sweetness of love. But Schopenhauer would argue that these are distractions, temporary pleasures masking permanent pain. Love brings suffering because what you love you can lose. Connection brings fear because what you connect with can be torn away. The sweetness of children carries the bitterness of knowing they will one day suffer and there is nothing you can do to stop it. Parenthood is not salvation, it is surrender. Imagine the philosopher's challenge. Would you bring a child into the world if you knew their fate in advance? That they will experience heartbreak, disappointment, loneliness, aging, and eventually death? Most parents, if faced with this prophecy before conception, would recoil in horror. And yet they do it blindly, comforting themselves with illusions, never daring to confront the truth until it is too late. The decision to have children is not the creation of joy. It is the creation of inevitable tragedy disguised as love. But there is a kind of man who sees through the illusion, the one who resists the instinct, who refuses to multiply the chains. He may be called selfish, bitter, incomplete, but in reality, he is the only one courageous enough to say no to the will. He is the one who chooses creation over reproduction, freedom over bondage, authenticity over illusion. While others seek meaning in continuing the cycle, he seeks meaning in breaking it. And in that act, he becomes something rare, an individual who refuses to be swallowed by the herd. There is something terrifying about the man or woman who resists the cycle. Society does not know what to do with them. A person who chooses not to have children exposes the lie that children are necessary for fulfillment. Their very existence is proof that joy, purpose, and meaning can be found outside the chains of reproduction. And this terrifies the collective. Because if one individual can thrive without children, then what excuse remains for those who sacrifice themselves believing there was no other option? Their choices begin to look less like destiny and more like submission. And so the childless individual is attacked, shamed, ridiculed. They are called selfish, irresponsible, incomplete. Not because they are any of those things, but because they are free. And freedom, when witnessed by the enslaved, is unbearable. Schopenhauer understood this dynamic with brutal clarity. He wrote that most people live as though life were a gift, when in truth it is a burden. Parents desperately want to believe they have given something beautiful, but the philosopher insists they have given a curse wrapped in ribbons. This is why society glorifies children, because if the illusion cracks, the collective guilt would be overwhelming. Imagine millions of parents admitting at once that they imposed existence without consent, that they created suffering disguised as love. The system would collapse. And so the illusion must be defended at all costs. Every advertisement, every movie, every cultural ritual screams the same message. Family is everything. Children are blessings. Parenthood completes you. It is a chorus designed not to inspire truth but to silence doubt. But behind closed doors, doubt leaks out. The late-night conversations where parents whisper, "I miss my freedom." The confessions drowned in wine. "If I could go back, I might choose differently." The envy hidden in their eyes when they see the friend who remained untamed, traveling, creating, becoming. These whispers are not rare. They are universal. Yet they are buried, censored, forbidden. To admit regret openly is taboo, because it threatens the illusion everyone depends on. But Schopenhauer would tell you, listen closely. Those whispers are the voice of truth breaking through the mask of duty. And what of the children themselves? Do they not one day feel the same resentment toward life? Every generation inherits the same struggle. Desires that cannot be satisfied, ambitions crushed by circumstance, bodies betrayed by time. Parents insist that their sacrifices were for love, but children feel the weight of expectation pressing on them. They must justify their existence by succeeding, achieving, repaying a debt they never chose. A son feels obligated to honor his father. A daughter feels guilty for her mother's sacrifices. But how can they repay a debt they never asked to incur? They cannot. And so resentment brews silently, the child carrying the parent's burden, while already preparing to pass it on through their own children. This is the endless loop. Obligation, disappointment, resentment, repeated across centuries. Think of how the economy thrives on this cycle. Every child is a new consumer. Every parent a predictable laborer. Governments measure success not by freedom, but by birth rates. Declining fertility is called a crisis, not because individuals are suffering less, but because the machine fears collapse. If fewer children are born, there are fewer workers, fewer taxpayers, fewer obedient citizens. Society does not care about your fulfillment. It cares about your productivity. And nothing guarantees productivity more effectively than a man terrified of failing his children. The illusion of family keeps him compliant, useful, predictable. This is not sacred. This is strategy. Parenthood is the perfect instrument of control. Now step back and ask yourself, what is truly created when you have a child? Not freedom, not legacy, not salvation. What is created is another fragile being condemned to hunger, fear, longing, illness, aging, and death. Another consciousness burdened with the same questions that torment you. Who am I? Why am I here? What is the point of this suffering? You did not save them. You summoned them into the storm without their consent, and one day they will curse existence as you have, and perhaps curse you for bringing them into it. This is the heart of Schopenhauer's pessimism. To create life is not to bestow a gift, but to impose a sentence. And yet even in this darkness there is a strange form of liberation. For if you recognize that children do not save you, that reproduction does not redeem you, you are free to seek meaning elsewhere. You are free to create in ways that transcend biology, to write, to build, to imagine, to rebel. You are free to live for yourself, not as a cog in the machine of reproduction, but as an authentic individual confronting existence directly. To resist parenthood is not cowardice, it is defiance. It is to stand against the blind will and say, I will not be its servant. I will not multiply suffering for the sake of illusion. I will create meaning on my own terms. But this path is not easy. It is lonely. The man who refuses to have children will be questioned, mocked, even pitied. Families will pressure him. Friends will not understand him. Society will brand him as incomplete. And yet, he carries a secret they do not. He has not multiplied the chains. He has broken one link in the cycle. He has chosen freedom over illusion. And in that choice, he becomes dangerous, not to himself, but to the system that thrives on his obedience. This is why Schopenhauer's message is rarely taught. It is too dangerous. It strips away the illusions that keep the machine running. It reminds you that having children is not salvation, but surrender. And those who hear it, who truly understand it, begin to see the world differently. They see through the advertisements, the rituals, the expectations. They see the cage, and some of them choose to step outside it. And once you step outside, you cannot go back. You cannot unknow the truth. You cannot see children as blessings without also seeing the chains behind their smiles. And so we arrive at the final realization, the one Schopenhauer whispered like a curse across the centuries. To bring a child into the world is not to create meaning, but to extend the tragedy. You are not saving the world by reproducing. You are repeating it. You are not building a future. You are replicating the past. The will to life uses you as a vessel, convincing you that sacrifice is noble, that love redeems suffering, that children are light, but the truth is unrelenting. Every child is another flame destined to burn, flicker, and vanish into darkness. Every cradle is already a coffin in disguise. And yet, people celebrate, smile, and call it beautiful. They do not see the abyss under their feet. Or rather, they see it and refuse to look too long. Schopenhauer insisted that wisdom begins in the recognition of suffering. To resist the call to multiply life is not despair, it is clarity. It is the refusal to impose existence on another soul without consent. It is the courage to say, I will not pass on this burden simply because my instincts demand it, because society pressures me, because tradition expects it. I will not create another prisoner for the sake of appearances. I will live authentically, dangerously, without the crutch of illusions. And in that rebellion lies true freedom, not the false freedom of a man chained to responsibilities, but the raw freedom of an individual facing existence without lies. Think of what becomes possible when you refuse to obey the cycle. You are no longer forced to dilute your energy into endless duties. You are no longer tethered to a job you despise just to pay for another's survival. You are no longer vulnerable to the manipulation of a system that feeds on your sacrifices. Instead, you can create. You can rebel. You can live in solitude or in passion, in exploration or in mastery. You can become who you are without compromise. And perhaps most importantly, you do not pass on the curse. You do not condemn another soul to hunger, heartbreak, and death. You break the chain, if only for one generation. And in that act, you become more than a parent ever could. You become free. Now I turn to you. You have walked through Schopenhauer's abyss with me. You have seen the 5 reasons laid bare, the tyranny of the will, the death of individuality, the illusion of legacy, the slavery of economy, and the multiplication of suffering. You know now what most refuse to admit, and I want you to take a moment right now and engrave this truth into words. In the comments, write this phrase: freedom begins where illusion ends. Let it stand there not just as a comment but as a declaration that you are not afraid to face reality, that you are not afraid to look into the darkness without flinching. Your words will echo alongside others, forming a chorus of those who dare to see clearly. And as you write, as you let that truth out into the open, take another step toward freedom. Subscribe now, because you and I are building something dangerous here, a community that strips away illusions and faces existence as it is. Like this video, so the message spreads further, so more people are forced to question the lies they've been told. Each click is not just support, it is rebellion against a world that wants you obedient, silent, blind. And together, we will not be silent, because this is not the end. What comes next will take you even deeper. There is a truth hidden beyond what we have uncovered today, a truth so unsettling that most will refuse to even consider it. And yet it is waiting, ready to shatter the last illusions you cling to. Prepare yourself, because the next step will challenge not just what you believe, but who you are. The journey continues, and what lies ahead will not let you sleep the same again.